What's up, you guys? Welcome back to the Coachable Podcast. I'm your host, Tori Gordon, and I'm so excited for you to join me for another episode of this show where you are going to learn practical and spiritual tools to unlock your inner champion and create a life that feels as good as it looks. I am joined today by Branden Collinsworth. Welcome to the show. I'm very excited to have you here. Branden is an internationally renowned human performance coach, master trainer for Nike, and works exclusively with several of the most impactful people in sports, music, and business. He is a 500-hour certified yoga instructor. He's completed over 1,000 hours of yoga training in different disciplines, including yin yoga and therapeutic modalities. He's been endorsed and worked with brands like Nike, Netflix, Summit, Lululemon, Red Bull, MTV, Success Magazine, and more. Dude, he's doing so much. He's also the founder of Warrior Retreats. He's a Vegas, no longer a local, but he is a Vegas native. And we're lucky to have him in studio here in Vegas today. I'm super excited to have you. Thanks for being here.
It is an honor to be here. I've been seeing you for a while and the magic you've been sharing. So to finally be able to sit down in Las Vegas and Sin City.
Let's do it.
How cool is it?
I know, spreading light.
Yeah.
Spreading light in this place that can a lot of times be considered a dark place. You know, I think there's a lot that people can get into. I'm pretty new to this city myself. It's coming up on a year anniversary for me.
Congratulations.
And I know you can attest to this, but this is a place where it's really easy to sort of get lost in the desert, right? And just be wandering around for a long, long time. Forever. But you are somebody who grew up here, who knows this place in and out, and your story started here. So I would love for you to just give us a little bit of background on what it was like to grow up in East Las Vegas and how your journey started to the point where now you're doing these huge things. You're living in Asia. You're working for Nike, you've got your own retreats. I mean, you've made a massive impact, not just on my life, but on thousands and thousands of people around the world. What was the beginning of that for you? And can you shed some light on kind of how that all started?
Yeah, thank you so much. Just being here in Las Vegas is always a trip. Yeah. I call this place the Neon Dojo. It is truly a dance of light and dark.
Yeah.
And one of the deepest teachings of yoga is both light and darker teachers.
Totally.
So this game is a game of levels. This city is like a video game. If you survive the bosses, you make it to the top. There's massive rewards, but I'm so thankful for what this city has taught me. And my upbringing started off on the east side of Las Vegas. And a lot of people, when they come to Las Vegas, they just think of the Strip.
Yeah.
They just think of the neon lights. They just think of the parties. They think of the shows. They don't really think of the projects.
Sure.
But East Side Las Vegas is pretty much one big project. Anybody who drives to East Side Las Vegas, it's there's a lot of destitution over there. And, statistically, one of the lowest ranked school districts in the world, or not in the world, in the United States. A lot of poverty over there, a lot of crime. And when you grow up in the projects over there, especially when you grow up in the projects in a single parent household in Section 8 welfare housing, the chances of you making it out are next to none. One of the greatest gifts I was given is a mom who was a revolutionary in her own right. And her claim to fame was that she went against her whole entire family and had a baby with a black man. And her family disowned her, but she was a mama bear. Wow. And that was the one thing me and my mom had growing up in the projects was my mom unconditionally loved me. In fact, she had one rule for me that if anybody had any problems with me, I was to tell them that if they have a problem with me, they have to talk to my mom. And that translated to school, that translated to parents. It was you have a problem with me, you have to talk to my mom. So she really instilled in me at a young age that I mattered.
Yeah.
And she really emphasized reading. Now, the streets are strong. And by the time I was 16 years old, I was caught up in street life. I ended up dropping out of high school, got caught up in drugs, got caught up in alcohol. My depression went full force. At that time, my mother also had a mental breakdown. So it ended up leading to me dropping out of high school and spending about 2 years living on the streets where a lot of my homies, a lot of my friends either ended up dead or in jail or in just situations that you can't get out of. Sure. And there was this pivotal moment when I was 18 years old where I think I would call it my first spiritual experience. I was sitting at a bus stop on the east side of Las Vegas in front of this hotel called Sam's Town, Boulder Highway, and Nellis. And this voice came to me and it said that if you wanted to get out, you need to become a voracious reader. It was like education is the path. At that same time, there was a guy sitting next to me that looked like me, but like 20 years older, and he was addicted to crack or methamphetamine. And I knew at that time, if I didn't make some changes, I was going to die on the streets. Like the odds were truly stacked against me. And so I leaned in, I went for it. And at that time, I never left Vegas. The mountains that surrounded Las Vegas kind of like trapped me like a prison. So I didn't know the way out, but my heart knew that there was something more. And so I leaned into the books. I leaned into my education. And a lot of people, you know, they always see the fruits of the labor. Nobody ever sees the grind behind the lights. Nobody ever sees the push-ups behind the scenes. It took actually 10 years for me just to get out of the projects. This isn't even success. It took me 10 years of hustling. Took me
to get to baseline.
To get to baseline. That's
where
how
everybody else starts.
Yeah, that's how far back I was.
Right.
And so I leaned into the books, and the books became my way to journey beyond my circumstances. One book turned to 10 books, 10 books turned to 100 books, 100 books turned to 1,000 books. And I went from being like one of the lowest ranked students in my entire high school to going to community college and not even being able to get credit for math and English for the first 2 years because I was so remedial, to eventually going to the Ivy Leagues, getting my master's in positive psychology, and eventually going on to becoming one of the top trainers in the game. And more importantly than that, like, I think the journey really taught me that we all have something special inside us. And society is really good at telling us to shut that down or that we don't deserve to be what our dreams are telling us to become. But if we lean into it, magic happens. And so it took 10 years to get to baseline. And then once I was at baseline, that's when I really began to build the rocket ship that now is starting to push into orbit. The rocket ship that everybody sees, the rocket ship that everybody's like, wow, that they want to be a part of. But it truly has been a journey from the streets to the skies. And that's, you know, my tagline on Instagram. And I'm really grateful for what it has been because it's kept me humble. Growing up with my mother, growing up in the projects, seeing what she has gone through, no matter how high I climb, I'm always reminded to keep my feet on the ground. Part of that 10-year journey when I finally got to baseline, that was also when I graduated with my master's degree. I opened up my first gym in Vegas. That gym turned to 4 gyms. Those 4 gyms opened the doors for me to start to train like Vegas royalty, top club owners, the top festival owners, the top DJs. And I started traveling the entire world with these individuals. So I come from the streets. Next thing you know, I'm traveling the world. And it was crazy. 2016, 4 years into the journey, I'm signed to Nike. I have a penthouse downtown that looks out over to, you know, the streets that I used to like run. I used to not be able to afford Nikes. I now have 250 pairs of Nikes in my living room. And I felt worse than when I was on the streets.
Really?
Yeah. And so there was this huge moment where I was like, what is that?
Yeah, that dissonance between the life that you've created and built and I'm sure struggled and sacrificed for, and then the dissonance between what that looks like and how that actually feels.
Exactly.
Which I know so many people can relate to. It's like, I thought this was going to make me happy or this was going to fulfill me. What was that moment like? Like when did you have that awareness where it's like, wait, I thought that was it a feeling you thought you were going to have that you just didn't have one day, or what was that moment like?
I had no idea that I was going to land in that moment. There's somebody told me one time like that a lot of people start acting successful once they become successful. And in the process, they negate like the things they need to change in the moment to be successful. So success came so quick to me, and similar to many minorities or impoverished individuals who come out of the projects and all of a sudden they're handed keys to the kingdom. A lot of times we're not prepared to handle all that. So a lot of like psychosomatic challenges such as like abandonment wounds and savior complexes and trying to fit in, these things were masked and really didn't get looked at because of my success. And so 2016, when I'm sitting there on my balcony, I'm realizing I got a whole bunch of friends around me that actually don't care about me. I realize I'm pimping myself out and my worth, trying to fit in and be in the in crowd. I'm buying stuff that's way too expensive that actually I don't need.
Right.
And the truth is, it was all masking a deep level of self-hate. It was really showing like up as it looked like flash,
Right.
but it really was a lack of self-love. And during that time, I started to get into yoga, and I knew that every time I did yoga, I felt something. I was like, this kind of feels good. Like being present, this savasana I feel peace. And so knowing that, listening to the voice inside all these years and knowing that it always was there to take me on a journey or to show me what I needed to learn, I decided to go to Bali. And I walked into a yoga class, and the yoga teacher after the class comes up to me like unfazed and goes, "You got it all figured out on the outside, but you have no idea what's going on the inside. And until your self-worth and value come from within, you'll always be empty." And my mind was blown. And so I came back to Vegas and I was like, you know what? I need to take this leap. And so I packed up everything I owned. And I just recently heard the statistic that the average American has like 150,000 items in their house.
Wow.
I packed up everything I owned, got rid of all my shoes, all my kicks, grabbed a backpack, and I hit the road. And it started off with India, went backpack Patagonia, ended up in Thailand, eventually landed in Bali and started to study yoga.
Just pause. So you walk away from everything you'd built here.
Everything.
Because you had this moment with yourself where you're like, it's like the light comes on. You're like, and when the light comes on, you can't turn it off. It's like you can't unsee what you've just seen, which is like this lack or this feeling or this hole that I'm trying to cover up with all these things is not going to get filled unless I figure out what's happening on the inside. And I'm not going to figure that out by doing what I've always done.
Exactly. And there was the courage there. It was like, my rationale was like, my worst case scenario is I end up back in the streets.
I've used that so many times
you know
in
what
my
I mean?
life.
Like I can handle it.
Totally.
So what I thought was going to happen, and this was like my maybe my ego, I thought I was just going to go to Bali. My gym at that time won Business of the Year. We had out of 65,000 gyms worldwide, Mind, Body, Bold, Business of the Year. Like, we were known. Ask anybody about Vegas and Real Results who've been here for a while. They know what we did.
Wow.
And my bright idea was, I'm going to Bali and I'm collecting residuals because I've built this gym and I'm going to get $5,000 to $7,000 a month. Living in Asia, I'm 30 years old, I'm balling. What really happened was, and this is a lesson that I'm learning more and more, the universe is going to remove everything that is not in alignment with our truth when we truly step forward into that space. And so 6 months later, my business partners figure out a loophole in the contract. They basically remove me from all contracts, but I personally guaranteed some of the gyms. So they left me with a $650,000 bill. So all my accounts get frozen and I get a court judgment for $650,000 as I'm taking this leap towards my truth and towards my dharma. And so, you know,
like, how bad do you want it?
How bad do you want it? Like, I probably, it costed me $1 million to like bring my dreams to life and follow my truth. Like, when I really think about it.
And for those listening, like, I want people to hear this because it's like, okay, it's the come up. I crawled, worked my ass off out of poverty, went to school, got my degree, went to Ivy League school, have a ton of success in the business and fitness world, and burn it all down.
Like,
to start over.
Yeah.
To figure out a new path that I haven't walked before.
Yeah.
That I don't know what's into complete uncertainty of like, I don't know what's down there. But all I know is that there's a voice within me that says, walk and trust.
Yeah.
What is at that point in your life, your relationship to surrender and trust look like?
It's like kicking, screaming, falling, flailing, looking up to heaven,
Why, God? Really?
Yeah.
Like Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, like, for real? I gotta do this?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, all of it. I got videos where I'm like looking at myself and I'm like, I really don't know what's about to happen.
Wow.
Maybe I did too many psychedelics. Maybe something like I might have really just messed up. And so when I left, it was about a year process for everything to fizz out. And I fell deeply in love with yoga. My street smarts started to become expanded through this worldly smarts, book smarts that you could never get in some institution, that you can only get through experience. And I started to share my wisdom with some of the brands I used to work for. When I took the leap, I was like, Nike's definitely gonna like cut me. Instead, I sent a proposal to Nike. I was coming out of the yoga barn in Ubud, Bali. I said, I'm gonna bring yoga to the sports performance world via the lens of Nike. Sent a proposal to them. At that time, I was like new to yoga. I created this beautiful proposal, included like 20 of the top yoga influencers that were also like doing performance training, like combining sport and yoga. And at the very bottom, I put myself. I was like, and you can like think of me if you want. And 6 months later, they said, you know what, Branden, we're going to go forth with the proposal, and we're actually going to use you to launch the entire campaign of Nike Yoga.
Wow. And
so Nike then came through and funded me to be able to study and to travel and to learn from 2018 to 2020. So 2018, 2020, things are just like, I'm like, I did it. I made it. I figured it out. But the universe always has a plan. So 2019, dating this, like one of my twin flames. And end of 2019, end up going through a breakup. 2020 hits. All of a sudden, money starts drying up. I'm living abroad. Money keeps drying up. I'm like, what's happening? And at that time, my worst fear ever was coming back to Vegas. My worst fear ever was going back to the projects.
Right.
Like after getting out of the projects, the worst thing I could ever do was go back to the projects. And I would think about it. Like all of my drive was to stay away from the hood.
Right.
All my drive was like, I'll never go back. February, March 2020 starts coming around. All these projects are not happening that are supposed to happen. My bank accounts started to dwindle after 2 years of it. Nike's like putting everything on hold because of the pandemic and all that.
Right.
And all of a sudden, the bank account continues to dwindle all the way. I'm talking about, I'm riding like low numbers at this time. I end up at $14 left in my bank account. The last thing, like the last move before the pandemic fully hit was like, I could stay in Bali or I can go back home. Ended up coming back to Vegas in the projects, March 13th, $14, and had to sit with myself in that space. $14, I'm sitting there, again, another come to Jesus meeting. Must have done too much psychedelics. I don't know what's happening.
Full circle
Why
moment.
is this happening? And one, it was beautiful because it was my mother passed away last year. So it gave me an opportunity to actually spend some time with my mom again.
Yeah.
But little did I know, I actually hadn't shed my biggest fears. I wasn't completely unleashed. So I'm sitting in the projects on the east side of Vegas. And one night, in the back of the trailer, I decided to meditate. There's this like crazy diagram on the roof that crazy like ex-boyfriend of my mom's created. Like, I was like, what is this? But it was actually looked like sacred geometry. I'm like, this is really weird. So I'm like meditating and the voice came to me again. That same intuitional hit that I had 20 years prior. And it laughed at me. And it said, oh, you thought the sacred teachings were in some ashram in Bali or in some master temple in Thailand. Trailers too can be temples if you can learn how to tune in. And I realized like I could be back there, but that's not me. And the first thing that came to me was like, okay, I now really have nothing. I've lost my gym. I've lost my leverage. I've lost my brands. I've lost it all. If I can show the universe, if I can show God right now, truly how abundant I am by being of service, it's going to be incredible what the universe returns to me. And so the next day I started this Warrior 30 challenge. I got all the masters that I've met along my path to start sharing daily wisdom. 5,000 people signed up. All of a sudden, all my old clients, all of my old brands heard I was back stateside. I ended up in 2020 on 15 flights per week, training, teaching, yoga, bodywork, therapeutics, meditation. In the course of 3 months, I went from like my brokest to making more than I had in the previous 3 to 4 years. And it was all because I was finally in alignment.
Wow.
And that's really what it's been since 2020. It's been an aligned expression. I had to lose everything that was me, small me, to like step into everything that God wanted me to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's no longer about me. It's about my service. It's about like, my prayer is like, use me.
Mm-hmm.
Use me for whatever I'm here to be used for. And since
Wow.
I've stood in that, it's just been a really beautiful, like it's just been a beautiful dance.
I mean, there's so much good stuff here because I'm feeling into this because I'm in a similar position that you were in 2020 because I started my business in 2019, had a ton of success really, really quickly, didn't know how to hold it, didn't know how to contain it, was still dealing with all the beliefs and of worthiness and deservability and all of that. And then I watched myself over the last year start to just tread water and maintain, and then watch certain things just sort of die off. And like you were saying earlier, when you are ready to step into your truth and into alignment, things will start to be moved out of your way. And I'm fully in that moment in my life. And also what comes to me when you are sitting in that trailer meditating, like what happened in that? Because I want you to go deeper into what you said. It's like that this too can be a temple or your sanctuary or your whatever it is. Was that a moment? Was that an identity shift, or what happened there of realizing that like who I am today sitting here is not who I was when I left?
Yeah. Wherever we go, there we are. There's that quote.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, I mean, I ran for a long time. Part of like the reason why I acquired 50 countries on my belt wasn't just to like explore. I was running, trying to find something or find myself, and coming back full circle. Wherever we go, there we are. I realized that although I was back in the same circumstances and location, I wasn't the same person anymore.
Right.
I had the tools, and I always say like the work works. And I think at that time I might have like believed that partially, but what a great experiment to put all the tools to test, the tools of gratitude, the tools of manifestation, the tools of love, the tools of visioning, the tools of meditation and health, all of it by being put in the lab again with zero.
Right.
And so I think a lot of times, especially in this space of self-help, there's a lot of theory. There's a lot of soapbox preaching. And
less application.
Yeah. Epictetus says like, don't explain your philosophy, embody it. The embodiment piece, even for me, was more head than heart. And that was a moment where it really became ingrained in the heart because I didn't have anything masking it. The reality was the reality. I was broke. I have $14. I went to Circle K, got some Cheetos and like some cookies or something like that. Cause I was like, you know what? I don't got no money for Whole Foods right now.
So you go to a like, dang.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I just, at that moment, I learned it was like 20 years of work to learn a metaphysical law that we are in control of our reality. And intention plus action equals magic. But we have to wield our tools. And I saw it happen in real time. And it was, I finally healed the fear too. Forever, there's two fears. It was like the fear of going back and the fear of my mom passing. And my mom passing last year, that was the same thing. It was like this beautiful initiation. So at this juncture of my life, the two fears that I like that shook me, that made me move in certain ways. Because if we think about our fears, right? Fears a lot of times make people move a little bit different than they would if they weren't there.
Yeah.
Like maybe they won't be all in on an opportunity or all in on a relationship or hold back their voice or something like that. Those two fears were finally removed, and in removing those, it unleashed my potency.
Would you say then there was like a fear? Would that fear be related to a fear of loss?
100%. It was a fear of loss. It's a fear of judgment. You know, it's funny being on this side of so many things, and a lot of admiration comes through. But once upon a time, like I was like a loser to a lot of people, wasted talent, like, and honestly, part of my journey has been healing perfectionism because I thought I had to become perfect to like be loved and liked.
Right.
So like that fear and those fears there were like, well, what if nobody loves me? What if I'm no longer relevant? What if I'm no longer cool? What if I'm no longer popular? I'm like now 35. I'm not what I was when I was 25.
Totally.
A lot of that was there.
Especially when our identity, or we think our value is wrapped up in our performance.
Exactly. And so it was the biggest check reality of my life because I didn't have anything to lean on and the world was shut down.
Right.
So it was like, even if I wanted something different, I couldn't. I had to like sit with myself. And so that's been the launching pad. I think that's when I no longer, it wasn't about me anymore. It was about something bigger than me. That's really when like the use me, show me, lead me.
It's this evolution. I feel like it's like this evolution in consciousness that happens for all of us where it goes from like the me to the we.
Yeah.
To the collective all, right? Which is like, it's about self, then it becomes about service. And you said something about what could I give, even from, I want to show God, the universe, whatever, that I'm so abundant that even when I have nothing to give, that I'll give.
Yeah.
And putting into practice and actually applying the law of like giving and receiving.
Exactly.
It's like, if I give, it will come back to me.
Yeah.
But that is so scary in the moment where you feel like this is all I have left and I need to hold it and hold on to it. And we try to hoard it, or we're coming from that lack mentality or that scarcity mentality. It's like, this is my last $14. You know what I mean?
Right.
I better hold on to it.
Right.
And you woke up the next day and said, what can I give?
What can I give? And literally timelines bent.
Wow.
And I saw abundance come in a time where everything was shut down, unlike it's ever came in. And I think that's the beauty of trust. I think whatever people want to call it, Allah, Divine Mother, you know, Shakti, universe, Pachamama. I think this whole game is a test of trust. And faith is this proclamation that we don't know, but we're willing to surrender to something bigger than ourselves.
Right.
And that's scary. The unknown is scary.
Yeah.
But the truth is, and you know, in a day and age of so much uncertainty, people want control. Like collectively, we think we all have OCD.
Totally.
Because we're trying to hold on to like our sense of control. But the truth is, we really don't have any control other than like
futile. It's like,
right.
I don't know if you know Peter Crone's work or who Peter Crone is.
I do know Peter Crone. Yeah.
He says it's like basically trying to control your circumstances is like saying that the sun should be on the other side of the sky. Basically, like we know best. Like we're trying to play God, and we wonder why we're stressed out and why we're like, you know, why we're burnt out, because it's like that's not our role. And there was so many times in my life where I looked at things, looked at my circumstances, looked at the loss that I'd experienced, looked at the things that I didn't like and thought it shouldn't be this way. Shouldn't be this way. It should be different. As if I know best how it should be. Right? And how arrogant of me to think I know the way that life is meant to unfold.
Right.
Assuming that it should just bend and unfold according to my will. And it's that moving from my will to thy will.
That's it.
And that is a leap that some people never make.
It's true. Most
people never make.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. I think that is the gap between that so many people are like looking and peering over the edge and looking at. It's between like, am I willing to let go of what I think I know about life
Yeah.
and how I think it's supposed to be? And am I willing to jump into what looks like this abyss of uncertainty and ask and allow something that I might not even have a relationship with to catch me?
It's beautiful. That's a whole picture right there.
Yeah. It's like, I'm just going to jump and hope that.
Yeah.
But what other choice do we have is to continue to live in fear and try to control our circumstances our entire lives.
Right. And that's what happens is a lot of people, you know, they live these 70, 80-year lives and they've never really taken the leap. And or some people live like 20-year lives, but they live it fully. And this is like one of the things I'm seeing with a lot of like my loved ones and people that I care about is they're holding on so tightly to like security. But the greatest gifts, as so many have said, are on the other side of fear.
Right.
And I think that that's the dance. And it's a muscle.
Totally.
And the more we, you know, step into fear and the more we flex our muscles of like trust and the more we put ourselves out there, I think we get better at surfing the waves of the unknown.
Yeah. I feel like my life's journey and path has continually been these initiations into deeper levels of trust.
Yeah.
And being willing to choose to walk the path of uncertainty. That's why I even started my road trip that led me out to Vegas in the beginning. It was an experiment of putting these things into practice. And I said, one of the things I say is I'll never ask my clients to do something I'm unwilling to do myself. That is one of my values and one of the things that I live by. And so I believe that leaders go first. You know, leaders
absolutely
lead.
Absolutely.
So it was one of the experiments that I did in surrender and allowance and trust. And one other thing, which I really want you to touch on, and I want to hear your perspective on, which is practicing non-attachment, which has been, and I still am, maybe will forever be working with this one, because it's our attachment to things that then creates our suffering when they're either taken or they're removed or something, right? Like the things that our identity, our idea of ourself, our job titles, all of the things, which we saw a lot in the pandemic, people who were used to being seen and driving up to work in their fucking Porsche or whatever it is. It's like, no, I don't go to the gym. Like, I don't go to the office anymore.
Right.
Who am I without this? Who am I without these titles? So working with what it looks like to live a life where I'm not attached, but I also attach in a healthy way to people and to things and to my business and to my mission and to my values.
Right.
What is that like for you? And what does that look like in your life? Because in my experience, when I get attached to something, that's when I experience the deepest loss or the deepest pain. And suffering comes from that attachment to that person or to that thing.
Yeah, it's a very nuanced, like very talked about experience within, you know, the self-help space and the meditation space, the yoga space. Everybody's like, attach or don't attach. And I think all live in the human experience.
Right.
I think we're truly here to experience loss. And sometimes it's our attachment that inevitably breaks our heart, that inevitably opens our heart to experience like the highest level of love. And if we didn't have that attachment in the first place, that would have never happened. True. So, you know, it's all
useful.
It's all useful. All teachers are all emotions are teachers.
Yeah.
They're all valid. And I think that as we become more tooled up, we navigate attachment healthily rather than like a distorted attachment or a codependent attachment or a dysfunctional attachment. But the truth is, like, if a mother wasn't attached to her child, there would probably be a bad mother.
Totally.
Shout out to the moms out there, you know? And the same thing, like, if a child did not like feel an attachment to their clan or their family or their friends, there probably would be like something wrong.
Totally.
This society has done a really good job at breaking up the family unit. And one of the things that I think leads to a lot of depression, a lot of loneliness, a lot of anxiety, a lot of like stunted developmental growth is the fact that we are in this lone wolf, individualistic society where we've lost family, we've lost tribe, we've lost the ability to put our problems and our grievances on the altar.
Right.
So I think attachment can be healthy.
Yeah.
And I think that as we do this work, as we excavate, as we look inside, and as we really ask the big questions, our relationship with the human experience becomes more and more refined. And then we're able to like know when we're operating out of wounds, operating from a toxic space, or actually operating from a really healthy human space.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's something that I've been feeling into a lot more in different areas of my life. It's like, what does it look like to be healthily attached to certain things and also allow the life to flow like water, like things to come in and out of your experience.
Yeah.
And not try to grip on and control, and because it's in that energetic desperation is what it feels like within myself. That's how I experience it. It's like this desperate need to, it's like, no, wait, don't go away. Don't leave me. Or that I can feel internally. And it requires me to use my tools, like you're saying, to come back to it's like, I am okay. Like a space of like, I'm actually okay. And whatever needs to come in will come in. Whatever needs to go can go in the service of me and my highest expression of who I am.
That's a really difficult thing to dance with.
Right.
And it's our inner child wanting safety.
Right.
It's our inner child wanting love. And especially like those who grew up in like anxious, avoidant households, like that can be even more magnified. Totally. Like, because we want a sense of control. And I dealt like with a lot of abandonment wounds. And what I started to see as I dove deeper into the work is when I feel abandoned, I abandon myself. I validate the abandonment. And what I started seeing inside me, and this is like one of my processes, I started being able to see the little kid in me screaming for love. And a lot of times when we like have labels of good and bad, we'll say, well, if I'm feeling abandoned or I'm feeling codependent right now, that's bad.
Right.
But the truth is, like, there's a part of us that's just actually looking for love. And I've actually had to sit there several times and like almost self-talk my inner child.
Soothe it.
And soothe them and just be like, you know what, it's okay. And you're screaming right now and it's okay. And you feel attached to that situation and it's okay. And then the grips of that energy soften instead of that's bad, that's a part of me that I don't like. Because the truth is self-love and self-hate can't live at the same time. And a lot of people in this world, they want to self-love the parts of them that they love or that society loves or that they say is amazing. And the parts of them that they hate, they're at war with. And when you have two energies, opposing energies like that at war and at odds, there'll always be some dissonance within inside. On the flip side, real self-love and real self-worth creates room for everything to live. And it's in creating room for those things to live that they start to loosen up their grip on our lives.
Right.
We're able to, instead of be emotionally charged and like blown out of our present moment from an emotion, we're able to look at it and say, does this really serve me anymore? And this is by no means is this something that like an individual by themselves should attack. This is why we need teams. This is why we need coaches, such as what you do. You know, when you look at the greats, none of them did it alone. They have entire teams around them to help them be their best self. And that is just a mirror of like what it used to be like when we were in tribal societies, when we had elders and grandpas and grandmas and warriors that would teach us certain skills.
Right.
And so now we're in the process of reclaiming that. And I think that a lot of the emotions that people feel on a regular basis, especially the ones that throw people off, I think that they become so potent and destructive at times when they're not felt.
Yeah. Yeah, I say a lot to myself and to my clients, we can't heal what we hate.
So powerful. So powerful.
So the parts of you that you want to exile and that you want to judge as wrong or bad or whatever that you don't like, that shouldn't be that way, those things cannot heal under the energy and the frequency of thinking they're wrong or bad. So it's actually coming to a space of even just neutrality with it, because that can feel like, loving that can feel really difficult, right? But I'm like, what if it just isn't good or bad? It just is. And we can look at it and witness it. It's like in that acknowledgement of it, in the witnessing of it is the softening. And that softening is for me the doorway into it, to be with it.
Absolutely.
And for a lot of my internal process in working with these things, because every single day it's like, life presents me with people and circumstances to show me where I'm not free and healed. And so I work with it and I'm like, can I be with this first? Like, can I just be with it and let it be here?
Yeah.
Like, give it some space to be before I try to like make it different. And that's like has been my entryway into transforming it.
Absolutely.
And the energy that then transforms. And to your point about elders and community and tribe, and we use a lot of sports analogies on this show. I talk about the game of life.
Yeah.
The game of life and how to play it. And I see it through the lens that many people were playing it from one position on the field, which is defense.
Truth.
We're playing in survival.
Truth.
Right? That's what we have been born and programmed into, which is survive at all costs. And defense doesn't move down the field. Defense isn't proactive. Defense just is trying to prevent bad things from happening, right? It's just like, how do I prevent hurt and pain?
Right.
And we wonder why we're not making the progress we want to make or achieving the goals or what have you. And I'm like, this process that you talked about, the 10 years of just getting to baseline for you, then the continuation of that to then starting to move into all of these creative things that you've been able to build for yourself. It's like moving from this defensive posture in life, which is the fear, the scarcity, the lack of self-worth, the survival, to offense, which is, what do I want to create? Who do I want to be? Intentionality, putting intention and action together, practicing these things. You don't become a master Nike instructor by just showing up to the gym once a week. These are things that are practiced diligently every single day, whether it's the tools of self-development or something for your physical health or any other skill that you're trying to learn. And it's falling in love with that process, right? It's
that's
like
the key.
The pros do the basics better. That's what we say.
That's the key.
It's like the basics look like, are you aware of what's happening internally right now?
Right. Again and again and again. For years.
Right. And we think it's just like, then, and your story is proof of that, which is like, I can have all of this success and then come back to the same starting point. But now I'm witnessing and experiencing that from a different place.
Absolutely.
And that's this journey that we end up going on of consciousness and choice, of choosing. Because I said that, like, this show is about helping people unlock their inner champion. You said, in your own words, everybody has something unique that they're meant to give the world, and they're intrinsically valuable, and there's something that they're uniquely designed to express in this world. It's like, okay, how do we unlock that? How do we start to discover what that looks like? And coaches, therapists, community, all of that has been such a huge part of it for me, because I'm like, I can only see what's right in front of me if I'm playing the game.
Right.
I'm looking right here. You can see what's happening on the whole field.
Yeah.
You can see my blind spots.
Right.
And there's an opportunity here that I'm not even aware of, right? And who's going to help look out for that for me if I'm playing alone? Like,
Exactly.
life's a team
Exactly.
sport,
Yeah.
too. It's
Yeah.
like, there's so many things.
You need all
there.
the coaches.
Yeah. So what, like, for you, I know you're creating that space for people to come into and things like you're doing with warrior retreats. But I'd love for you to like speak to what that's personally looked like for you in terms of mentorship, coaches, therapy, like finding your way in the work. And then what does that look like in terms of what you're building for other people?
Amazing. Yeah. I've had so many mentors along the path. They say when the student is ready, the teacher will always appear. As soon as I took that leap, that step forward, teachers began to appear. My first mentor, Mr. Mulholland, he's we call him Morpheus. He's like this brother. He's at the Community College of Southern Nevada still.
Amazing.
Walked into his class when I was like 19 years old. He had a suit jacket on with a tie, with shorts and no shoes on, and he was sitting cross-legged in the middle of the room with all the desks moved out. He's like, "You guys matter so much." I was like, this is my guy. He's another brother that looked like me.
Cool.
And over the years, I've had several mentors. There's a term in Zen Buddhism called Shoshin. It means beginner's mind. And so always keeping the white belt on. Have the black belt swagger, but always put the white belt back on.
That's what being coachable
That's
all
it.
about.
Yeah, always.
Yeah.
And so when you're coachable, when you're a good student, the teachers are going to want to teach you. And also being humble enough to realize that everybody actually can teach you something. And so many mentors have like appeared in different capacities. In 2011, right before I graduated from the University of Pennsylvania, I met my life coach. She's been my life coach for 12 years. And at that time, I still had a lot of street in me. I still was like unrefined. There's like my alter ego, Eastside Branden.
Okay.
Like Eastside Branden was still like running the show in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Like slang and all that stuff and a lot of unresolved trauma. And she has been with me from the journey of me not even being able to stand in front of two people and speak, to like speaking on TED stage, to helping me like go from living in some like junky apartment to like expanding my vision and like helping me open my world up, my environment up to something more beautiful. And then I also have had a therapist for a long time, and the therapist really helped me see like some of the things that just were hidden to me. You know, they say there's what you know, what you don't know, what you know, and what you don't know, you don't know. And like what I didn't know was like I had abandonment wounds, I had savior complex, I had codependency issues, I had a love addiction tendency, I had all of these things that were showing up in my relationships. And I'm like, why am I not having healthy relationships with money and any of that? Well, there's these subconscious things that were rolling behind the scenes that were throwing me off. And so at this juncture, I have a team of 5+ like professionals on my team. I have a mastermind of 10 powerful men, and I have a squad of probably like 30, 40 just friends over the years that have done the work. And the truth is, we only have so much time for so many people. And family sometimes gets a few of those spots, even though they might be a little bit dysfunctional.
Sure.
It's all love. But other than that, like, if we want to be champions, we have to create championship teams. And it requires a certain cadence. It requires a certain level of belief. It requires a certain level of skill and standard and execution. Yeah. Everybody, you know, there's a lot of teams in the NBA. Not everybody was the Bulls. 94 Bulls, they had a standard. Yeah. And so at this juncture of my life, it's nothing personal to people that want to play on, you know, a team that wins 50% of the time, but I'm trying to win championships. And so this requires a very high level of peers. It requires a very high level of coaches, and it requires a very high level of discipline within myself.
Yeah. Yeah. I 100% agree. And that standard is often a byproduct of our self-belief.
100%. self-worth.
And self-worth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Because I asked you before we started, like, what's really, really on your heart? Like, another way I could have asked that is, like, what do you think is standing in the way of people unlocking that inner champion?
Great question.
Is that self-worth for you?
Self-worth and so I think self-worth and self-love are like cousins.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that when people finally see themselves as inherently priceless, self-love just becomes a byproduct.
Mm-hmm.
Self-worth changes everything. When we really see ourselves as worthy and worth it and valuable, when we're in a toxic relationship, that doesn't slide anymore.
Mm-hmm.
The nourishment that we put in our body changes. The help that we ask for, like stating our needs and desires, that becomes super potent and powerful. And there's no deviation from that. Like self-worth, really standing in that, a new standard is set. Because at the end of the day, and a lot of people may disagree with this, at the end of the day, we set the standard for how people treat us.
Totally.
And at the end of the day, no matter what our circumstances are, we kind of chose that in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like coming from where I come from, obviously I didn't choose to grow up in the poverty and the projects, but it was my choice to either stay there or not. And there's a lot of my friends that are still in the projects.
Right.
It was a choice. It was a choice to like wake up and read a book or wake up and do something that you've always done.
Right.
And oftentimes it's a lot harder to like go for something that you've never done than repeating the same thing. But as we know in our society, and Einstein so poetically said this, like to do the same thing and expect different results is insanity.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of insanity going on right now. Krishnamurti also said that it's no measure of health to be well adjusted to a mentally sick society. So right now, the society as a whole has been so inundated with fear that everybody is just holding on.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm here to say that actually the table of greatness is wide open because so many people are playing it safe.
Right.
Soon as we take that leap, it's like frictionless.
Yeah.
You get to space, it's hard to get
it's
off
like
the ground.
Getting a good block and you just got space to run.
Yeah,
it's like, I'm off.
You're Barry Sanders style.
Yes.
Hit the jukes.
Exactly.
And that pursuit, I truly believe, opens with self-worth.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of my practices is I just sit there for like 5 or 10 minutes and ask myself, how much can I love myself right now?
Mm.
And it's actually really invigorating when you start to feel like in love with yourself, not from a space of like delusion,
sure,
but just like honoring
yeah,
ourselves.
I know what that feels like.
Yeah, it's like, wow. And at the same time, like self-hate, when we're in self-hate, it's all encompassing too. I truly believe like heaven and hell is not a place that you go to. It's a place that you grow to, like through
an
experience right here. And
Marianne Williamson said, who's been on this show, love or fear in your mind produces fear in your life. That's the meaning of, love in your mind produces love in your life. That's the meaning of heaven. Fear in your mind produces fear in your life. That's the meaning of hell.
Mic drop. Shout out to Marianne Williamson.
I was like, that's what people are living in every day. So you can experience heaven or hell. And that comes down to what you said, which is choice.
Yeah.
Which is the thing that makes being human so amazing and profound. Because champions, if you want to distill it down to the thing that you will find in every conversation on this show, is that champions make intentional choices. You don't become a champion on accident.
Right. There's no slipping into
you don't
championship.
Fall into it. Yeah. It's not like, I just woke up today and now I'm going to be this success. Right. Because you've even said it and I've experienced it. And we know so many people who, when you do fall into some level of success or experience this fluke of success, or even if it was well deserved, if you don't know how to continue that and hold that, then you'll lose it. It's like people who win the lottery and then they lose all the money.
That's why I think Kobe was so prolific. He was so dedicated. He was intentional. He was tooled up. He was rooted in his worth. And a lot of people, when they think of like sports, they think of like getting to that ring or getting to that championship. But like to take it even next level, when we zoom out and we look at their life beyond sports, how they continue to succeed in different areas, whether it's family life or it's the projects that they lean into after. Like Kobe, after he retired, he continued to bring that same Mamba mentality into all these other projects. And I truly believe that's a process that comes of years and years of planting seeds of self-worth.
Yeah.
To where we end up on the other side of our quote unquote careers. Because even as a trainer, I'm now like on the other side of like what I once was. The form changes, but the intention and the energy stay the same.
Right.
And it allows for us to like blossom and live many creative lives in one life. And I think that's the beauty of the journey that we're all given the opportunity to take.
Well, in my work and in my education throughout the last few years, one of the things I've learned in becoming a facilitator and a coach and doing deeper work with people is one of the hallmarks of trauma is choicelessness. You said, I didn't decide. I didn't choose where I grew up. I didn't choose what family I was born into, what zip code, where, we don't choose a lot of those things. Those are decisions that are made for us, but you said I got to choose whether I was going to stay there or not. And so I believe that part of the healing of our trauma is reclaiming our sovereignty, which is our ability to choose.
100%.
And in so doing, you realize your own power to create a new reality.
Yep.
So for those listening, I want you to take away that, like, if you're in a place in your life where you're experiencing something that you don't want to be experiencing, you have two choices. Am I going to do what I've always done, or I'm going to do something different? And a lot of times we're like, I don't know what to do. People are like, I don't know what to do. I need clarity before I do something. And sometimes I'm like, clarity is going to come by doing. If you do it, you'll realize if this is for you or if it's not for you.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know if I like pizza. I don't know if I like Brussels sprouts. Try it. You'll do it, and then you'll know. Right?
Yeah.
So sometimes the clarity that you think you need isn't going to come by just sitting around and thinking about it. Sometimes that makes you more confused. So it's just like, make a choice and get off the fence.
Absolutely.
So that you can put all your energy in one direction.
Absolutely. One of the books that I've been like super pushing on everybody is Frederick Douglass, A Narrative of a Slave.
Ooh, okay.
And so Frederick Douglass, for those that don't know, was born on a plantation in the early 1800s, and he learned to read. And it took him 10 years to learn to read. And he had to learn by, like, in secret.
Right.
Inevitably, he escaped slavery, and he became the leading voice of African-American freedom of those times. First Black man to ever go to the White House, the most photographed Black man of the 1800s. And he had a quote that said, I prayed for my freedom for 20 years, but nothing changed until I started praying with my legs. And so I've been talking to a lot of my friends and my people and my coaches about what it means to truly pray with your legs. And praying with your legs means you got to meet God. You got to meet the universe halfway. In his book, he was speaking about how many slaves just prayed and prayed and hoped that one day some savior was going to come, remove them from the situation. And the truth was,
you're it.
You're it. You're the savior.
The God you're praying for is you.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
God, well, it's in A Return to Love, Marianne Williamson says something like, like when you pray to God and ask for help, basically, like, you're asking for him to send help, and he sent you. Like, you're
so powerful.
You're it.
That's it. And we are the answers we've been waiting for. We are the love we've been waiting for. We are the teacher we've been waiting for. And that's the beauty of yoga and all these ancient teachings is they point the fingers back to ourselves. As the Bhagavad Gita says, yoga is the journey of the self, to the self, through the self. Yeah. It's like realizing this God essence, realizing this intelligent thing that we are, that, we're sitting here trying to like fix government, fix everything. We don't even know how our fingernails grow.
Right.
And so there's so much data right here. And if we could tune out the noise, tune into this space from a space of self-worth, because when we're not in self-worth, it's hard to sit with ourselves. But when we are in self-worth, we can sit with ourselves all day and let the teaching start coming through. It's teachings that are more visceral than cerebral.
Right.
English is a limiting language in a lot of ways. Like English, in a lot of senses, like what we know with words creates our worldview.
Mm-hmm.
Yoga and meditation and breath, we're now tuning into something that is beyond
Language.
rational mind. And that's where it becomes quantum. And as Joe Dispenza says, like, you can't create the unknown from the known. You can only create the unknown from the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
And so
it's the non-physical.
It's the non-physical.
Totally. Yeah, the metaphysical. And then that's that journey of like, can I learn to be with myself long enough to find the
right.
the wisdom that it has. And I think that's one of the reasons starting with the body is so powerful.
100%.
Because it's a natural healer and teacher. It's like you cut yourself. You don't need to think about how it's going to repair. It's self-organizing. It knows how to heal itself. So it's like just even witnessing your body's reactions to things. How if I work out, muscles grow, right? If I eat a lot, this happens. It's like there is wisdom to be, learned. And if we just look at it, if we pay attention to it, and it goes back to what are you giving your attention to and your intention to, because there are lessons in it. And the body, for me, yoga was the same. It was my entry point into so much of this, because I got to have a visceral experience.
Exactly.
Instead of a cognitive one. And it was like, oh, instead of I think I love myself, it's like, no, I feel my own love. I felt that in breathwork for the first. When I did breathwork for the first time, it was not like, oh, I know I love myself. It was like, no, I'm having the full body embodied visceral experience of what that actually feels like. And those two things are very, very different.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of these times. This day and age, it's like, our ancestors, our parents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents, they were so focused on the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy of needs and like just safety and shelter and things like that. The self-actualization wasn't really a talked about thing.
Right.
In this day and age where we have landed, we're really like the first generation. I mean, obviously they talk about the Egyptians and all that stuff. That's a whole different story, but we're really the first generation where everything is possible. The touch of a button, through intention, we can access the entire world's database of knowledge. Like nothing is impossible. And at the same time, we have access to every methodology to activate everything that we are. We just got to go there. And that's what I'm really excited about.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about, growing up, I was a superhero nerd. I still am like
really
a superhero nerd. Like every Marvel movie. Like
who's your favorite superhero?
Probably, I mean, if we really go deep, probably like Adam Warlock.
Okay. I don't even know who that is.
Yeah. He's a dude who lives in one of Thanos's gems.
Okay.
It's a whole different story.
Okay, we just pulled out you're like
yeah, he's gonna be in the Guardians of the Galaxy 3.
Nerd. I love it.
Pull out the hat.
Yes.
But I think that we all are superheroes. We all have strengths. Yeah. And our duty is to bring them to life in this lifetime. How boring would this world be if we were all the same? And that's the problem with like Instagram and all that.
Right.
People get caught up in being like other people.
Yeah.
Truth is like nobody can do it like me. Nobody can do it like you. Nobody can do it like any of the people listening. Like your thing is your thing. And I believe our job is to bring our thing to life. And then that's where swagger starts to emanate.
Because nobody is me.
Nobody is me.
Doesn't like me.
Yeah, and when you can own that.
Own it.
Yeah, it just becomes a whole different experience. And then, what I love about one of the quotes Marianne Williamson said is like, as we let our light shine, we unconsciously give other people the permission to do the same. As we start to show up in our gifts, people are like, you know what? I can show up in my gifts. And also when we show up in our gifts, we're feeling so full that we don't need to throw shade on anybody else's gifts.
Right. Yeah. It's liberating.
Truly.
It's liberating. And I think it was Glennon Doyle in one of her books in Untamed that says there's no such I can't remember if it was Glennon Doyle. I think she quoted someone else, but there's no such thing as one-way liberation. So when I liberate myself, you know what I mean? Like if I'm in a relationship and I'm doing what's best for me, it's also liberating you.
That's it. That's it.
Which is beautiful. I want to ask you about one more thing. I've heard you say, there's a quote you have or something that I've heard you say before about a mirror and what happens when you look in the mirror and you smile and you see something on the other side. If you want to experience things in your external world, what do you need to do?
Yeah, so that quote was, I was down in Peru in ayahuasca ceremony, and it was pitch black, and the music stops, and Diego Palma, rest in peace, he said, if, and I'll send you the, actually we recorded it.
Oh, wow.
I'll send you his last like lecture. He said that if you look in a mirror and you see a frown, you don't reach to the mirror and you try to turn it to a smile. He then said, you just smile and the mirror magically smiles back. And this is the world we live in at this moment. A lot of times what we see is what we are. A lot of times what we are holding on to, the level we are vibrating at, a lot of times that blossoms in the material world and vice versa. You know, it's this idea that like our reality is our creation. And when we truly start to live from a space of love and ritual and gratitude and presence and compassion and kindness, we start to see that everywhere. When we're living in a space of fear and hate and I don't have enough and negativity and woe is me, it's everywhere as well. And I think that's the beauty of like this information age as well. Like when we go online, you can go down the rabbit hole of fear. You can go down the rabbit hole of love. This is why I think the most important resource we have is our attention. Yeah. And how we wield our attention is everything. Absolutely. How we wield our attention is literally creating our experience, our life experience, and our life expression. And it's not easy. I'm so tooled up and I struggle every day. Yeah. But I know that my life is better because of it. It's almost like there's a quote that says like, I've read thousands of books and I don't remember a thing, but I know my life has changed because of it. Like I don't remember really everything I read, but I know that it changed my entire life.
Totally.
So it's like these little micro nudges, these micro wins that we plant each day.
They matter.
They matter. The work truly works, but one has to do the work. One has to like get into the soil and be okay with going through it all, through the hell weeks, through the breaks, the sprains, the aches, the pains, knowing that there's no skipping from white belt to black belt. Although a lot of coaches would like to say that they can give you the black belt without like doing the work. Right.
Be wary of anybody who tells you that.
Yeah. And that's the thing is like each level has something to teach us. You get to a blue belt in jiu-jitsu, there's certain fundamentals that you have to learn or you won't be able to handle what is at a purple belt. And I feel like that happens across the board with love, with finances, with education, with, you know, communication, with public speaking, anything. There's certain levels and each level requires failure to get to the next level.
Put in the reps.
Be okay with failing.
Totally.
And then allow the process to be the process.
Yeah. Trust it. 100%. Okay. Last question. What are you working on personally right now that you're excited about, or whether it's in your business, in your life, something you're learning through? I like to ask this question. What are you celebrating? What are you creating? And what are you growing through?
Beautiful, beautiful. So what am I celebrating? I'm celebrating this new concept that I found. It's called the God Pocket. The God Pocket, when my mother passed, I knew that I needed to put myself in a concentrated space of energy. And I wanted to put my tools to the test once again. And all of a sudden, I realized I was in the God Pocket. God Pocket is a place where only things that are of the highest expression of my divinity, my light, my purpose can live and nothing else can come in. And what I've seen as I've lived in the God Pocket is in the last 6 months, every project that I've touched has exploded. And so the God Pocket is a concept. A lot of people are now talking about the God Pocket and it's cool. And what the first question was,
what are you celebrating?
Yeah. So the celebration is just, the celebration is that at 38 years old, I finally found peace, and that peace is in direct correlation to my surrender to God.
Amazing. What are you celebrating? What are you creating?
So with the creation process, the moment I finally declared that I'm an artist, not a coach, not a trainer, not an entrepreneur. There's a quote that I love. It goes, "Define yourself in a way that can't be defined, and you are free." We're all artists. Anybody who chooses to go into the space of creation is artists. As soon as I've claimed that, a lot of things have like begun to blossom in many different spaces. One of the things that I'm most excited about is what Warrior is becoming. And Warrior Retreats, for those that don't know, is my curated rite of passage from the jungles all the way to the Amazon. Take leaders deep into service, deep into the cuisine, the culture, and the people of Peru. And we're going to be expanding that to a Warrior Weekend, where we bring a lot of the masters that are in my circle to the first ever U.S. immersion. And then also we're launching Warrior Women's, where we're creating a space for women to gather and go on their own dieta in the jungles. And this is with the masters and the masters. So partnering up with a few different people in the space. And we're really excited about what that's going to look like.
Cool.
And then I think my biggest calling right now, which I'm actually like prepping my body, prepping my energy for, is like fatherhood. And so I'm really intentional about, feel really honored that I actually get to choose when to like go down that road. And so I am, my body and cells know that it's the next chapter for me. And so I'm just really like nourishing myself so that when I bring this next life to life, it's getting my best and not some weird energy.
Beautiful. That's amazing. Are you currently in partnerships? So are you
I'm
like,
not.
Okay, so calling it in.
Just right
like,
here.
I'm ready.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. And lastly is, what are you growing through? I don't like to ask, what are you going through? What are you growing through? Is there anything specifically that you're personally working on? It sounds like that might be part of it.
Every day. Yeah. I mean, it's not like the wounds just disappear.
Totally.
It's constant progress. I have to continue to like work on a lot of the things, or the subconscious takes over. And so that's definitely part of the process. My mother passing away last year was like wild. It was one of the most wild things that I've ever been through. A lot of people don't realize, I put this up on the gram, but you know, they found my mother under a bush, like on the streets of Las Vegas, like off a sidewalk in the middle of the summertime. And so the streets not only raised me, taught me, like wounded me in a lot of ways, but gave me so much game, but at the same time, like took my mother. And so I had to really sit with that. And a lot of people see all the momentum, and you know, it's not even been a year. It's been 7-8 months since my mom passed. That right there, like unlocked a level in me that I never thought I would touch, but there was also a lot of grief. And I'm still going through the grieving process. Part of why I was in Thailand was just to be in space, because the whole time my mother passed, I was in service to people. And so I'm still allowing for myself to feel what I need to feel so that that's healed. And I'm not holding on to the energy or anything like that. I truly am aware enough to know that by not feeling somatically, like it'll show up in ways that are not healthy.
Right.
And so I believe that I have another 6-7 months of really healing that part.
Sure. Yeah. I'm sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
I lost my mother in 2018 and my sister in 2011. A big part of my story is about the familial loss that I've experienced. And so grief has been a big part of my journey as well, and learning to make room for it. It's part of it. It's all welcome and it's all allowed. And but it certainly, death has been one of my greatest teachers and initiators into what it really means to truly live and what it means to make the time that we have matter and mean something, because I think about life and this game, and most of us think we're in the second quarter, right?
We
And
have
the
no
truth
idea.
is you have no idea, and that's a real reality. And when you can come and you get that close to death and you can wrestle with it and reconcile with it, it's just another teacher. And somebody said it's the last form of growth.
I agree. When I was in Bali when I found my mom passed, and I had a keynote 3 days later.
Wow.
It was my first time breaking into like $10,000 speaking engagements in that realm. And I was like, my mother would want me to do this. So I did the keynote, and then it took me a week and a half to get back here. And when I walked in and saw her body, it was like the most beautiful initiation I could have ever gone through. It was like, oh, this is what life is. And one of the last gifts she gave me was the family history. On her side, she did it all the way back to the 1200s. And I'm going through it. And the one thing I noticed that was similar was everybody had a dash. And the dash equals our life. That dash is our life. Some people's dash is 10 years. Some people's dash is 50 years. Right. And it really dawned on me, like, some people's dash is very black and white. Yeah. And some people's dash is very colorful. And so when my mom passing, I was like, you know what? Whatever I got left in this dash, I got to make it colorful, because eventually I'm going to be a number on this paper as 100%. Well.
That's the guarantee. That's the certainty. If people are looking for something certain, you can be certain you're going to die at some point. Yeah. And if we can really come to terms with that, it's like, what are we doing? That was the awakening moment for me when I was with my sisters, but we took her off life support after a battle with cancer. And my mom also passed of cancer, but being with their bodies, that was this like thunderclap moment. I was like, I am not just this physical body. Because you're here and then you're not here. Exactly. I'm with her, but she's not here. Exactly. And so that's another podcast for another day. But I feel you. I'm with you. I could say, got a lot of love for you. I appreciate what you're doing in the world, and any way that we can support you, we're here for it. And thank you for being a beautiful testament to the journey and what tenacity and courage and bravery and the willingness to do something different can really look like if you make intentional choices. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, Tori. It's an honor.
You guys, I know that you have so much to take away. I hope you took notes. Please go follow Branden on Instagram. You're at Branden Collins. Is at Branden Collinsworth. Yep. We're going to put all of his information about warrior retreats and what he's working on in the show notes, so you guys can make it over to his side of the internet and connect with him. In the meantime, you can do me a huge favor. If you love this episode, share it with a friend, somebody who you think might need to hear a conversation like this, and leave us a rating and review. That's one of the best ways you can say thank you to me. I appreciate you. Thank you for being here. I'll see you next week on the Coachable Podcast.